Wow, that's such a cool idea to build. Why didn't I figure it out myself? Let me show you a guide on how to build a prison.
Round 1.
Stone brick has always been one of my favorite materials for building structures that are meant to look strong, permanent, and difficult to break through. That's exactly the feeling a prison should create. Instead of using smoother blocks that might make the building seem modern or decorative, I build the entire first floor from sturdy stone bricks, giving the walls a heavy and intimidating appearance. Real prisons have traditionally been constructed from materials chosen for durability rather than beauty. Thick stone walls could withstand harsh weather, resist damage, and most importantly, make escape far more difficult. Even today, many historic prisons around the world are remembered for their massive masonry that has survived for centuries. Stone bricks recreate that same atmosphere in Minecraft because their textured surface immediately suggests strength, age, and reliability. A prison isn't supposed to look welcoming. From the very first glance, the architecture itself should communicate that this is a place built for security, and the solid walls already begin telling that story before any decorations are added. Although the building itself isn't very large, I deliberately leave the entrance much wider than people might expect. At first, that seems like a strange decision for a prison, but entrances to secure facilities are often designed to accommodate far more than individual visitors. Wide gateways allow guards to move groups of prisoners, transport supplies, and bring maintenance equipment inside without creating dangerous bottlenecks. Throughout history, many prisons also included large gates reinforced with heavy doors and metal barriers, making them easy to monitor while remaining extremely difficult to force open. In Minecraft, a wider entrance also improves the overall proportions of the build because it immediately establishes a clear focal point on the front wall. Good architecture naturally guides the viewer's attention toward the most important feature of a structure, and entrances almost always serve that purpose. Even before adding towers, fences, or security details, the shape of the building already communicates its function, proving that thoughtful proportions can be just as important as decorative elements. As the walls begin taking shape, I start adding patches of cobwebs around different sections of the prison. They aren't there simply to fill empty space. Cobwebs instantly tell a story about the building before anyone even steps inside. In games, movies, and books, artists often use environmental details to suggest that a place has been abandoned, neglected, or left standing for many years. This technique is known as environmental storytelling, where the surroundings reveal information without a single word being spoken. A cracked wall, broken furniture, or a few strands of cobweb can completely change how people perceive a location. Prisons are especially effective settings for this kind of storytelling because they already carry an atmosphere of mystery and isolation. The extra cobwebs make the structure feel less like a brand new fortress and more like an old institution that has witnessed countless stories over the years. It's amazing how one of Minecraft's smallest decorative blocks can add so much personality to an otherwise plain stone building. The entrance still feels a little too open, so I reinforce one side with iron fences to create the appearance of a heavy security barrier. Metal has always symbolized protection and confinement, which is why bars and fences have become one of the defining visual features of prisons throughout history. Interestingly, real prison gates are rarely designed to be completely solid. Open metal barriers allow guards to keep a constant watch on everything happening beyond them while preventing easy access at the same time. That balance between visibility and security is one of the key principles behind correctional facility design. Even in Minecraft, a few iron bars immediately communicate that this isn't an ordinary building. Without changing the overall structure, they introduce a completely different feeling, making the entrance appear far more secure while still allowing players to see what's waiting inside. One side of the roof needs something that immediately strengthens the prison's silhouette, so I build a compact guard room overlooking the entrance. Large observation posts have been part of prison architecture for centuries because height gives guards a significant advantage. From an elevated position, it's much easier to monitor movement, communicate with other officers, and react quickly if something unusual happens. I surround the room with iron bars instead of ordinary windows, reinforcing the impression that security remains the highest priority, even for the guards themselves. Those bars also create an interesting visual contrast against the rough stone bricks, breaking up the large surfaces without introducing unnecessary colors. It's another example of how functional design often becomes decorative simply because every structural element has a clear purpose. A few more cobwebs across the top of the guardroom help the upper section blend naturally with the rest of the prison. Weathering is one of the most effective ways to make Minecraft builds feel believable because real buildings rarely remain perfectly clean for decades. Rain, dust, wind, and time gradually leave visible marks on every surface, creating subtle imperfections that give structures character. Architects and historians can often estimate the age or condition of a building simply by studying those details. Minecraft doesn't simulate years of natural aging, so builders recreate the same effect manually through carefully placed decorations. The trick isn't covering every wall with damage, but adding just enough signs of age to make the viewer's imagination fill in the rest. A handful of cobwebs can suggest decades of history far more effectively than covering the entire prison in random clutter. The opposite side of the roof looks like the perfect place for a narrow watchtower, so I construct a tall section from stone bricks before finishing it with cobblestone walls. Watchtowers have served as one of the most recognizable security features throughout military and prison history because they dramatically increase a guard's field of vision. From higher ground, a single person can observe an area that would otherwise require several patrols on foot. The combination of solid stone below and lighter walls above also creates a more interesting silhouette, preventing the building from looking like one large rectangular box. Good architecture often depends on variation in height rather than endless decoration. Even simple towers, chimneys, or roof structures can transform an ordinary building into something memorable. By adding this final elevated section, the prison immediately feels more imposing, and its outline becomes much easier to recognize from anywhere in the surrounding landscape. The inside of the prison still feels incomplete without the place that gives the entire building its purpose, so I divide part of the interior into a prison cell. Instead of using ordinary walls across the front, I install sturdy iron bars from the mod, creating a barrier that's impossible to mistake for anything else. Prison cells have always been designed around two important principles: security and visibility. Guards need to prevent escapes while also keeping prisoners in constant view, which is why bars became far more common than solid doors in many correctional facilities throughout history. They allow light and fresh air to pass through while making it easy to monitor everything happening inside. That same design works perfectly in Minecraft because the bars immediately communicate the function of the room without requiring dozens of extra decorations. Even before adding furniture or other details, the atmosphere changes completely. The heavy stone walls, reinforced entrance, guard structures, and secure cell now work together to tell a clear story, transforming what was once just a simple stone building into a place that genuinely feels like a prison. Phew, it took so much effort. Great, my prison is ready.
Oh, wow!
Joo-hoo! We're going to build a prison today. I love teaching you something. Mikey has probably already built his prison. Mikey, is that all you've built in that time? Are you sure this is prison?
JJ, you only know how to offend me. By the way, I tried very hard.
Mikey, but this prison can only accommodate a couple of people. It's so small.
Oh, that's it. Stop judging. Maybe then you'll show me how to build a prison.
Of course, we ran to the place.
JJ, I'm not sure you're going to make it, but in any case, good luck to you.
Thanks. Then I'll start. Round 2. Getting the overall layout right is far more important than worrying about small decorative details, so I begin by planning the prison's footprint before filling it with walls and rooms. A correctional facility isn't just a single building surrounded by fences. It's a carefully organized complex where every section serves a specific purpose, from controlling movement to separating different areas. I use quartz for the main surfaces because its clean appearance contrasts beautifully with the darker stone bricks that reinforce the structure. At first glance, quartz may seem like an unusual choice for a prison, but many modern correctional facilities rely heavily on light-colored concrete and stone rather than dark medieval materials. Bright walls improve visibility for security staff, make maintenance easier, and create a more orderly environment. This combination of white and gray also reflects a common principle in contemporary architecture, where contrasting materials highlight different structural elements without relying on excessive decoration. Even before the building reaches its full height, the mixture of quartz and stone bricks already establishes a professional, institutional appearance that feels very different from an ordinary house or fortress. Large public buildings rarely grow randomly, and this prison follows the same philosophy. Every wall extends with a clear purpose, gradually defining corridors, exterior boundaries, and future interior spaces. One of the biggest differences between experienced builders and beginners is that professionals often think several construction stages ahead. Rather than focusing only on the wall they're placing, they constantly imagine how every new section will connect with future rooms, entrances, and pathways. Architects work in exactly the same way when designing hospitals, schools, airports, and government buildings. They don't simply draw attractive rooms, they carefully organize how people will move through the entire structure. Good planning reduces confusion, improves efficiency, and creates buildings that feel natural to explore. Even in Minecraft, thoughtful layouts usually make a much stronger impression than complicated decorations added without a clear plan. A secure prison depends on much more than thick walls, which is why the surrounding perimeter becomes just as important as the main building itself. I extend the outer fence until it encloses the entire complex, creating a clear boundary between the prison and the outside world. Throughout history, correctional facilities have relied on multiple layers of security rather than a single obstacle. Even if someone managed to leave the building itself, they would still have to cross open ground before reaching the exterior fence. That empty space is often called a security perimeter because it gives guards an unobstructed view of everything happening around the prison. Modern facilities still use this principle today, combining fences, surveillance systems, and controlled access points to make unauthorized movement much more difficult. In Minecraft, enclosing the entire area also improves the realism of the build because prisons rarely exist as isolated buildings. Instead, they're designed as carefully protected compounds where every entrance and exit can be monitored. The fence transforms the project from a simple structure into a complete correctional facility with its own controlled territory. Not every section of the perimeter needs to be made from the same material, so I introduce iron bars in several key locations to strengthen both the appearance and the security of the complex. Mixing materials is one of the oldest architectural techniques because it allows each section of a structure to communicate its purpose. Heavy stone suggests permanence, while exposed metal immediately conveys strength, restriction, and protection. Iron fencing has become one of the most recognizable symbols of prisons because it offers something solid walls cannot: complete visibility. Guards can observe movement through the barrier without sacrificing security, making it much easier to supervise large outdoor spaces. This balance between openness and protection appears in many types of secure facilities, from prisons to industrial complexes and military bases. By combining quartz, stone bricks, and iron elements, instead of relying on a single block, the prison gains much greater visual depth while also feeling far more believable as a functioning institution. Constructing a prison of this size entirely by hand would take an enormous amount of time. So I occasionally rely on building commands to speed up the most repetitive parts of the project. Some people mistakenly believe that using commands requires less skill, but experienced Minecraft builders see them as professional tools rather than shortcuts. Large community maps, adventure worlds, and multiplayer servers are almost never built block by block from beginning to end. Instead, creators use commands and editing tools to place long walls, duplicate symmetrical sections, and shape massive structures that would otherwise require hundreds of hours of repetitive work. The real challenge isn't pressing a command, it's planning everything correctly beforehand. Every measurement, every corner, and every material still has to be chosen carefully because a command only repeats the builder's decisions. It's similar to how architects use computer software to generate precise blueprints instead of drawing every single brick by hand. Technology speeds up the process, but the design itself still depends entirely on the person behind it. Even while commands help raise sections of walls and fencing much faster, they don't replace careful craftsmanship. Every automated section still needs to connect perfectly with doors, corners, towers, and future interior rooms. This is where attention to detail becomes far more important than raw building speed. Professional Minecraft builders often spend far longer planning and refining a project than they do placing the blocks themselves. A perfectly straight wall is only useful if it fits naturally into the rest of the structure, and symmetrical layouts only look impressive when every section aligns correctly. That's one reason large-scale projects can still take weeks, despite the availability of powerful building tools. Commands eliminate repetition, but they don't eliminate design decisions. Every finished section still reflects the builder's understanding of proportion, composition, and functionality, proving that creativity remains the most valuable tool in the entire construction process. Security is built through layers rather than individual structures, so I keep expanding the prison until every section feels like part of one carefully organized complex. The main building already dominates the center of the area, while the surrounding fences and walls naturally guide movement toward the controlled entrance. This concept is often called controlled circulation in architecture because it limits where people can go without relying on dozens of physical barriers inside the building. Airports, research laboratories, government facilities, and correctional institutions all use similar planning strategies to separate public, restricted, and highly secure areas. Visitors aren't simply stopped by locked doors. They're guided along carefully planned routes that make unauthorized movement difficult from the very beginning. Minecraft builders can borrow the same principle by thinking about how players will explore a structure instead of focusing only on its appearance. A believable building isn't just attractive to look at. It also feels logical to move through, with every pathway serving a clear purpose within the overall design. Large projects also benefit from repeating architectural patterns, and prisons are an excellent example of that idea. Rather than inventing a completely different design for every wall or fence, I maintain consistent materials, spacing, and proportions throughout the complex. Repetition might sound boring, but it's actually one of the strongest tools in architecture because it creates rhythm and order. Human eyes naturally recognize repeated shapes, making even enormous buildings feel organized instead of chaotic. Walk through the corridors of a school, hospital, or office building, and you'll notice the same principle almost everywhere. Matching windows, evenly spaced columns, identical doors, and repeating structural elements. That consistency helps people understand a building almost instinctively. By carrying the same visual language across the prison, every new wall, fence, and section feels connected to the rest of the complex, giving the entire build a professional appearance that looks as though it was planned as a single project rather than assembled piece by piece over time. Every completed section makes the prison feel more convincing because the individual structures are no longer standing on their own. They're beginning to function as one complete facility. One of the most overlooked aspects of designing large institutional buildings is maintaining a clear visual hierarchy. Not every part of a prison should demand the same amount of attention. the main building naturally becomes the centerpiece, while the surrounding fences, reinforced walls, and security features support it without stealing the focus. Architects intentionally create this balance by varying the size and importance of different elements across a project. If every structure were equally tall or equally detailed, the viewer's eye wouldn't know where to look first. Minecraft builds benefit from exactly the same approach. By allowing the central prison block to remain the dominant feature while the surrounding defenses frame it, the entire composition feels stronger and far more realistic. Good design isn't just about adding more structures, it's about making every structure contribute to a clear overall composition. Building a prison also highlights an interesting difference between defensive architecture and ordinary residential design. Houses are created to feel welcoming, comfortable, and easy to enter, while prisons are designed to achieve almost the opposite effect. Thick walls, limited entrances, protective barriers, and open security zones all influence how people emotionally react to the building before they even step inside. Architects often refer to this as environmental psychology, the idea that architecture can shape human emotions and behavior without anyone consciously noticing. Tall walls can create a feeling of security or confinement depending on the situation, while narrow passages naturally slow movement and encourage caution. Even in Minecraft, players instinctively respond to these visual cues. A bright modern home invites exploration, whereas a heavily fortified prison immediately communicates restriction and control. That's one of the reasons architectural style is so powerful. Without a single line of dialogue, the building itself tells players exactly what kind of place they're looking at and what they should expect once they enter. Perfecting the exterior gives the prison a believable presence, but a correctional facility isn't defined by its walls alone. The spaces inside determine whether the building actually functions as a prison. So, I shift my attention to the interior layout. One of the first priorities is creating individual prison cells that separate inmates while allowing guards to supervise them efficiently. Throughout history, prison designs have changed dramatically, depending on how societies viewed punishment and rehabilitation. Some early prisons placed dozens of inmates together in large, shared rooms, while later facilities introduced individual cells to improve security and reduce conflicts. Modern correctional institutions continue to study how cell layouts influence both safety and daily operations, showing that architecture can directly affect the lives of everyone inside a building. Even in Minecraft, dividing the interior into organized sections immediately makes the structure feel more authentic because every room now has a clear purpose instead of existing as empty space. Iron bars become one of the most important materials inside the prison because they create secure cell fronts without completely separating prisoners from the surrounding corridor. This design has remained common for centuries because visibility is just as important as physical security. Guards must be able to monitor inmates quickly without opening every door, while prisoners still receive light and airflow through the barred entrances. From a design perspective, repeating rows of identical cells also introduce rhythm into the interior. Just as repeating windows define the outside of many buildings, repeating prison cells establish order inside. Architects often use repetition to make large complexes easier to understand, allowing visitors to recognize patterns instead of becoming lost in confusing layouts. By combining sturdy walls with carefully placed iron bars, the prison begins to feel less like a decorative Minecraft build and more like a functioning institution where every structural element exists for a practical reason. The area in front of the prison benefits from a surprising amount of decoration, so I add flower beds near the entrance to soften the harsh stone and quartz architecture. At first glance, flowers might seem like an unusual choice for a prison, but real correctional facilities often include carefully maintained landscaping around administrative buildings and visitor areas. Plants improve the appearance of large institutional structures and create a more organized environment without reducing security. Landscape designers often use greenery to break up long stretches of concrete and masonry because natural elements make large spaces feel less overwhelming. The contrast between colorful flowers and the rigid geometry of the prison also creates stronger visual interest in Minecraft. Architecture often becomes more memorable when hard and soft elements exist together, which is why many government buildings, museums, and public institutions combine stone, metal, and carefully planned gardens. The small flower beds add a touch of life to the entrance, while making the prison look more believable as a place that people actively use rather than an abandoned fortress. The living areas become the next focus, so I continue refining the prison by furnishing each cell with simple beds. A prison cell doesn't need luxury to feel realistic. In fact, limited furniture often tells a stronger story because every object serves a specific purpose. Real prisons are designed around efficiency, with rooms containing only the essentials needed for daily life. This principle of functional design appears in many areas of architecture, where unnecessary elements are removed in favor of practicality. In Minecraft, repeating the same layout across multiple cells also creates a sense of order, helping the interior feel planned and institutional rather than random. The rows of identical beds reinforce the idea that this building follows strict rules and routines. Small details like sleeping spaces may seem insignificant compared to towers and walls, but interior features often determine whether a structure feels believable when players explore it from the inside. No prison feels complete without prisoners, so I place villagers inside the cells to give the building a sense of activity and purpose. Adding living characters transforms the prison from a static build into a scene that tells a story. Builders often talk about environmental storytelling, where the arrangement of objects and characters allows viewers to imagine what happens in a location even without dialogue. A room with a bed becomes a home when someone lives in it, and a prison cell becomes convincing when someone occupies it. Villagers are especially useful for this because their movement creates subtle animation throughout the build, making the prison feel active even when nothing else is happening. Theme parks, museums, and movie sets use a similar principle by adding people, mannequins, or moving elements to help visitors connect with the environment emotionally. The prison no longer feels like a collection of blocks and decorations. It feels like a functioning place with routines, inhabitants, and countless stories hidden behind the bars. Great! My prison is ready! It's time for me to show it to the guys.
Wow, JJ! You've got a huge prison! She looks very much like the real one.
Thank you, Mikey. I am very glad that you liked my building. Well, I think it's time for us to finish.
Yes, JJ, you're right!
Subscribe and like. Bye-bye.